The morning sun cast golden rays across the magnificent kingdom of Valdoria as Princess Amelia adjusted her emerald silk gown. Today marked the annual Harvest Festival celebration, and thousands of citizens had gathered in the grand courtyard below the royal palace of Rosehaven. The 12-year-old princess stood nervously behind the heavy oak doors that led to the ceremonial balcony, her heart racing with anticipation. "Remember, dear one, wave gently and smile warmly," Queen Isabella whispered to her daughter, smoothing down Amelia's auburn curls that had been adorned with tiny white roses. "The people have traveled from every corner of our kingdom to see their royal family." King Edmund stood tall in his ceremonial robes, the crown of Valdoria gleaming atop his head. "This is your first major public appearance, Amelia. The citizens are eager to meet their future queen." His voice carried both pride and gentle encouragement. As the palace guards opened the massive doors, a roar of cheers erupted from the crowd below. Thousands of people filled the courtyard, their faces upturned with joy and excitement. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and the sweet aroma of freshly baked festival bread wafted through the air. Children sat on their fathers' shoulders, waving small flags bearing the royal crest of Valdoria. Princess Amelia stepped onto the marble balcony, her small hand gripping the ornate stone railing. The balcony, built 3 centuries ago by her ancestors, stretched across the entire front of the palace. Its intricate carvings told the story of Valdoria's glorious past, and morning dew still glistened on the detailed stonework. The crowd's enthusiasm was overwhelming. "Princess Amelia! Princess Amelia!" they chanted, their voices echoing off the palace walls. Some threw flower petals into the air, creating a beautiful shower of colors. The young princess felt a surge of warmth and responsibility toward these people who looked up to her family with such love and trust. She began to wave, just as her mother had taught her, when something caught her attention. In the far corner of the courtyard, she spotted a group of children from the local orphanage. They wore simple clothes and looked so different from the well-dressed citizens surrounding them. Their faces showed the same joy, but Amelia noticed how they stood slightly apart from the crowd, as if they felt they didn't quite belong. Determined to acknowledge them specifically, Princess Amelia moved toward the far end of the balcony. The stone railing there was older, weathered by countless seasons of rain and sun. As she walked, her silk slippers made soft sounds against the marble floor. The crowd followed her movement, their cheers growing even louder as they realized she was making an effort to greet everyone. "Look how gracious she is," whispered an elderly woman in the crowd to her granddaughter. "She wants to make sure everyone feels included." Princess Amelia reached the far end of the balcony and leaned forward to wave specifically at the orphaned children. Their faces lit up with pure joy when they realized the princess had noticed them. One little girl, no more than 6 years old, began jumping up and down with excitement. But as Amelia leaned against the ancient stone railing to get a better view of the children, she felt something give way beneath her hands. The old mortar, weakened by years of weather and age, began to crumble. Before anyone could react, a section of the decorative stonework broke free. The princess felt herself losing balance as the railing she depended on suddenly disappeared. Time seemed to slow as she windmilled her arms, trying desperately to regain her footing. Her emerald gown billowed around her as she teetered on the edge of the balcony, 30 feet above the stone courtyard below. Queen Isabella's scream pierced the air. "Amelia!" The crowd's cheers turned to gasps of horror as they watched their beloved young princess struggle to maintain her balance. Some people instinctively moved forward, though they were far too distant to help. Others stood frozen in shock, unable to comprehend what was happening. King Edmund lunged toward his daughter, but he was several steps away, positioned at the center of the balcony for the ceremony. Palace guards began rushing forward, their heavy boots thundering across the marble floor. But everything was happening too quickly. Princess Amelia's eyes widened with fear as she realized she was falling. The last thing she saw before tumbling over the edge was the terrified face of the little orphan girl who had been jumping with joy just moments before. The child's expression had changed from pure happiness to absolute horror. As the princess fell toward the unforgiving stone courtyard below, the entire kingdom seemed to hold its breath. The Harvest Festival celebration had transformed into every parent's worst nightmare, and the future of Aldoria itself hung in the balance with their falling princess. The 30-foot fall seemed to last an eternity, though it took only seconds. Princess Amelia's emerald gown fluttered like a wounded bird as she plummeted toward the stone courtyard. Her mind, sharp despite her terror, flashed through memories of her childhood, her parents' loving faces, and the responsibilities she would never fulfill if this was truly the end. But fate had other plans. Just below the royal balcony stood the festival's main attraction, an enormous silk canopy that had been erected to shade the royal musicians during the ceremony. The canopy was supported by thick wooden poles and stretched tight with heavy ropes, designed to withstand strong winds during outdoor performances. Princess Amelia crashed through the silk fabric with a tremendous tearing sound that echoed across the silent courtyard. The impact was jarring, but the canopy absorbed much of the force, slowing her descent significantly. The silk wrapped around her like a cocoon as she continued downward, now tumbling rather than falling in a straight line. Beneath the torn canopy lay something even more fortunate: bales of fresh hay that had been stacked there earlier that morning. The palace staff had been preparing to distribute the hay to local farmers as part of the Harvest Festival traditions. These golden bales, soft and yielding, provided a second cushion as the princess finally came to rest. The crowd stood in absolute silence for several heartbeats, too shocked to react. Then chaos erupted. "Get the royal physician," someone screamed. "Clear a path," shouted another. People began pushing forward while palace guards tried to maintain order and create space around where the princess had fallen. King Edmund vaulted over the remaining section of the balcony railing, using a decorative column to lower himself partway down before dropping to the courtyard. His crown fell off during the descent and clattered across the stones, but he paid no attention to it. Queen Isabella was right behind him, her elaborate gown torn as she climbed down with surprising agility. Dr. Aldrich Graymont, the kingdom's most renowned physician, had been attending the festival as an honored guest. He pushed through the crowd with authority that people respected, his medical bag clutched tightly in his hand. At 70 years old, he had served the royal family for decades and had delivered Princess Amelia herself 12 years earlier. "Stand back, everyone! Give her air!" Dr. Graymont commanded as he reached the princess. She lay still among the hay bales, her auburn hair fanned out around her pale face. Her eyes were closed, but he could see the gentle rise and fall of her chest. She was breathing. The physician knelt beside Amelia and began his examination with practiced efficiency. He checked her pulse, strong and steady. He examined her head carefully for signs of serious injury, then moved to her arms and legs, testing for broken bones. The crowd watched in tense silence as he worked. "She's unconscious, but her vital signs are stable," Dr. Graymont announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the gathering. "However, we must get her to the palace medical chambers immediately. She may have internal injuries or a concussion." King Edmund gently lifted his daughter in his arms, cradling her as he had when she was a small child. Her head rested against his shoulder, and for a moment she seemed so fragile and small. Queen Isabella walked beside them, one hand on Amelia's forehead, whispering soft prayers. As they carried the princess toward the palace, something unexpected happened. The crowd began to follow them, not in a rush or panic, but in a slow, respectful procession. The orphaned children, who had witnessed the fall most clearly, walked at the front of this impromptu parade. The little girl who had been jumping with joy earlier now had tears streaming down her face. An elderly baker named Thomas, who had brought his finest bread for the festival, stepped forward and, offered his cart to transport the princess more comfortably. "Your Majesty, please, let her rest properly," he said with genuine concern. The king accepted gratefully, and they laid Princess Amelia on soft blankets in the cart. As the procession moved slowly through the palace gates, word of the accident spread throughout the kingdom like wildfire. Messengers on horseback galloped toward distant villages to inform the people. Church bells began tolling, not in celebration as planned, but in prayer for the princess's recovery. Inside the palace, Dr. Graymont set up his equipment in the royal medical chambers. He had modern instruments imported from distant kingdoms, including special devices for examining head injuries. Queen Isabella refused to leave her daughter's side, holding Amelia's hand and speaking softly to her, hoping her voice might penetrate the unconsciousness. "Talk to her, Your Majesty," Dr. Graymont advised. "Sometimes familiar voices can help guide patients back to consciousness. Tell her about things she loves, memories that might reach her." So Queen Isabella began to speak about their garden walks, about Amelia's favorite horse, about the books they read together in the evenings. King Edmund joined in, recounting funny stories about Amelia's childhood adventures. They spoke of her dreams to help the poor children of the kingdom, of the school she wanted to build, of the laws she hoped to change when she became queen. Hours passed as the sun moved across the sky. Outside, citizens maintained vigil in the courtyard, refusing to leave despite palace officials' assurances that they would be informed of any news. They shared food, told stories about how the royal family had helped them, and prayed together for their princess's recovery. As evening approached, something miraculous happened. Princess Amelia's eyelids began to flutter. Dr. Graymont immediately checked her pupil's response to light and found encouraging signs. Her fingers moved slightly, squeezing her mother's hand. "Amelia," Queen Isabella whispered. "Can you hear me, my darling?" The princess's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, but gradually becoming clearer. She looked around the familiar medical chambers, then at her parents' worried faces. When she tried to speak, her voice came out as barely a whisper. "The children," she said. "Are the orphaned children safe? Did anyone else get hurt?" King Edmund felt tears spring to his eyes. Even after such a traumatic experience, his daughter's first concern was for others' welfare. Queen Isabella squeezed her hand gently. "Everyone is safe, my love. You're the only one who was hurt, and you're going to be just fine." But as Dr. Graymont continued his examination, he discovered something concerning that would change everything about Princess Amelia's future. Dr. Graymont's face grew serious as he completed his thorough examination of Princess Amelia. While she was conscious and alert, responding well to questions, and showing no signs of life-threatening injuries, he had discovered something troubling. When he asked her to move her legs, nothing happened. The princess looked down at her lower body with confusion. "I can't feel my legs," she whispered, her voice trembling with the first hint of fear since awakening. "Why can't I feel my legs?" The royal physician's heart sank, but he maintained his professional composure. "Princess, it appears the fall may have caused some damage to your spinal cord. We need to conduct more detailed examinations to understand the extent of the injury." Queen Isabella's face went white. King Edmund gripped the bedside rail so tightly his knuckles turned pale. The possibility that their vibrant, active daughter might never walk again was almost too devastating to comprehend. "Will I ever walk again?" Princess Amelia asked directly, her young voice carrying a maturity that surprised everyone in the room. Despite being only 12 years old, she seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. "I don't know yet, Your Highness," Dr. Graymont answered honestly. "Spinal injuries are complex. Sometimes feeling and movement return gradually over time. Sometimes they don't. We must hope for the best while preparing for different possibilities." Over the next several days, the finest physicians from across the known world traveled to Valdoria. King Edmund had sent urgent messages to every kingdom, offering substantial rewards for any doctor who might help his daughter. The palace became a hub of medical activity as specialists examined the princess and consulted with each other. Dr. Elena Hartwick arrived from the northern kingdoms, renowned for her knowledge of nerve injuries. Master physician Chun Weiming came from the eastern provinces, bringing ancient healing techniques. Even Dr. Mikhail Volkov, the legendary surgeon from the far western territories, made the long journey to help. Meanwhile, something remarkable was happening throughout the kingdom. Word of Princess Amelia's condition had spread, and, instead of despair, the people showed incredible unity and determination. They organized prayer vigils, collected funds for medical expenses, and began working on projects to make the palace more accessible for someone who might need to use a wheelchair. Thomas the baker, who had offered his card during the emergency, started a campaign among the craftsmen. If our princess cannot come to us as easily as before, then we must make sure everywhere she goes is comfortable for her, he declared. Carpenters began building ramps. Stonemasons worked on smoothing pathways. Even the children contributed by drawing pictures and writing letters to encourage their beloved princess. Inside the palace, Princess Amelia was struggling with more than just her physical condition. The confident young girl who had wanted to wave at everyone during the festival now felt uncertain about her future role. How could she be a queen if she couldn't even walk? How could she lead the kingdom if she was different from everyone else? "Mother," she asked one evening as Queen Isabella sat beside her bed, "do you think the people will still respect me as their future queen if I can't walk?" Queen Isabella took her daughter's hand. "Amelia, leadership comes from the heart and mind, not from the legs. You've already shown more concern for others than many rulers show in their entire lives. Do you remember what you said when you first woke up? You asked about the orphan children's safety before asking about yourself." The queen's words provided some comfort, but Princess Amelia still felt lost. Everything she had imagined about her future seemed impossible now. She had dreamed of traveling throughout the kingdom on horseback, visiting remote villages, dancing at royal balls, and leading parades through the streets. Then, something unexpected happened that would change her perspective entirely. A small delegation arrived at the palace gates, requesting an audience with the princess. It was led by Maria Santos, a 15-year-old girl from a neighboring village who had been born without the use of her legs. She had heard about Princess Amelia's condition and had traveled with her family to offer support. Maria moved gracefully using wooden crutches that her father had crafted for her. Despite her disability, she had become the most successful young merchant in her village, trading goods between different communities and earning respect through her intelligence and determination. "Your Highness," Maria said when she was brought to the princess's chambers, "I heard about your accident, and I wanted you to know that your life is not over. It's just beginning differently than you expected." Princess Amelia was fascinated by this confident young woman. "But how do you do everything? How do people treat you?" Maria smiled. "At first, some people saw only what I couldn't do. But I showed them what I could do. I can negotiate better than most merchants twice my age. I can solve problems that others can't see solutions to. I can travel farther on my crutches than many people can walk because I've built up strength and endurance." She continued, "The most important thing I learned is that being different doesn't make you less valuable. Sometimes it makes you more valuable because you see the world in ways others cannot." This conversation planted a seed of hope in Princess Amelia's mind. She began to think about how her experience might actually help her become a better ruler. She would understand the struggles of people with disabilities. She would know what it felt like to face challenges that others took for granted. She would have a unique perspective on making the kingdom more inclusive for everyone. The medical examinations continued, and while the specialists confirmed that Princess Amelia had suffered significant spinal cord damage, they also discovered something encouraging. She had some feeling in her upper legs, and with intensive therapy, there was a small possibility that some function might return over time. Dr. Graymont designed a comprehensive treatment plan involving special exercises, massage therapy, and innovative mobility devices. The royal craftsmen worked with him to create a beautiful wheelchair made from the finest materials, decorated with the same care as a throne. But The real breakthrough came when Princess Amelia made a decision that surprised everyone. She announced that she wanted to continue her royal duties immediately, even while recovering. She wanted to meet with advisors, learn about kingdom affairs, and begin implementing changes to help other people with disabilities. "If I'm going to be queen someday," she declared, "I need to start acting like one now. I can't let this accident stop me from serving our people." Her parents were amazed by their daughter's resilience and determination. The frightened girl who had worried about people's respect was transforming into a young woman with a clear sense of purpose. She began planning modifications to laws and buildings throughout the kingdom, ensuring that everyone, regardless of physical ability, could participate fully in society. Word of the princess's renewed spirit spread throughout Valdoria, inspiring people in ways they had never expected. The accident that had seemed like a terrible tragedy was becoming the catalyst for positive changes that would benefit countless people for generations to come. 3 months after the accident, Princess Amelia had become a completely different person than the nervous 12-year-old who had stepped onto the balcony that fateful morning. Her beautiful wheelchair, crafted from polished oak and cushioned with royal blue velvet, had become a symbol of strength rather than limitation throughout the kingdom. The princess had thrown herself into her rehabilitation with remarkable determination. Every morning, she worked with Dr. Graymont and a team of therapy specialists who had developed new techniques specifically for her needs. She exercised her upper body until she became stronger than most adults. She learned to transfer herself from her chair to various seats independently. Most importantly, she discovered that her mind had become sharper and more focused than ever before. Her first major public appearance since the accident was carefully planned. The royal council had suggested a simple ceremony in the palace throne room, but Princess Amelia had other ideas. She insisted on returning to the exact same balcony where she had fallen, now reinforced and made completely safe. "I will not hide from what happened," she told her parents firmly. "The people need to see that I'm still their princess, and that nothing can stop me from serving them." On the chosen day, thousands of people gathered in the courtyard once again. This time, however, the atmosphere was different. Instead of mere celebration, there was a sense of profound respect and anticipation. Many people in the crowd had tears in their eyes before the princess even appeared. When the balcony doors opened, Princess Amelia emerged in her wheeled chair, looking radiant in a gown of deep purple silk. She had insisted on choosing purple because it symbolized both royalty and courage. Her auburn hair was adorned with a simple silver circlet, and her face showed confidence and determination that hadn't been there 3 months earlier. The crowd's response was immediate and overwhelming. Instead of the cheerful festival atmosphere from before, there was something deeper, a roar of approval that spoke of genuine love and admiration. People weren't just happy to see their princess, they were proud of her. But the real surprise came when Princess Amelia began to speak. She had requested a special speaking platform to be installed on the balcony, allowing her voice to carry clearly to everyone below. "My dear people of Valdoria," she began, her young voice carrying remarkable authority. 3 months ago, I fell from this very balcony. That fall changed my life in ways I could never have imagined. But today I want to tell you what I learned." The crowd listened in absolute silence, hanging on every word. "I learned that strength doesn't come from our legs or our arms. It comes from our hearts and our minds. I learned that being different doesn't make us weak. It gives us the power to see solutions that others might miss. And I learned that true leadership means understanding all of our people, especially those who face challenges every day." She paused, scanning the crowd below, her eyes finding the orphaned children who had been present during her fall. They were in the front row now, invited as special guests. "I want to announce several new initiatives for our kingdom. First, we will build schools that welcome every child, regardless of their abilities. Second, we will construct roads and buildings that everyone can use comfortably. Third, we will establish the Royal Fund for Innovation, which will support inventors and craftsmen who create tools to help people with disabilities. The crowd began to murmur with excitement. These weren't just kind gestures. They were revolutionary changes that would improve countless lives. But most importantly, Princess Amelia continued, I want every person in this kingdom to know that their value doesn't depend on what they can't do. It depends on who they choose to be and how they choose to help others. When she finished speaking, the crowd's response was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed at a royal event. People weren't just cheering, they were sobbing with emotion. Many rushed forward to touch the balcony walls, wanting to be as close as possible to their transformed princess. In the weeks that followed, Princess Amelia began implementing her promised changes with remarkable efficiency. She worked directly with master builder Henrik Nordson to design new construction standards for the kingdom. Every new building would include ramps, wider doorways, and special features for people with various disabilities. The princess also established the Royal Advisory Council for Inclusion, bringing together people with different disabilities to help guide policy decisions. Maria Santos, the young merchant who had visited the princess during her recovery, was appointed as the council's youngest member. But perhaps the most surprising development was how Princess Amelia's accident inspired innovation throughout the kingdom. Craftsmen began creating improved wheelchairs, better crutches, and devices to help people with hearing or vision difficulties. The Kingdom of Valdoria was becoming known throughout the world for its inclusive policies and innovative solutions. The princess herself continued to grow stronger and more confident. She learned to ride a specially adapted horse, allowing her to travel throughout the kingdom as she had always dreamed. The horse, a gentle mare named Hope, was trained to respond to her upper body movements and voice commands. During one of her travels to a remote village, Princess Amelia encountered a situation that would test all of her newfound strength and wisdom. The village was facing a crisis that threatened the lives of dozens of people, and the local authorities had given up hope of finding a solution. A dangerous rock slide had blocked the only road leading out of the mountain village just as winter was approaching. The village's food supplies were running low, and there was no way to transport sick people to the main kingdom for medical care. Several elderly villagers were already suffering from the cold and inadequate nutrition. The Royal Engineering Corps had examined the situation and declared it hopeless. The rocks were too large and too dangerously positioned to remove safely. Building a new road would take months, far longer than the villagers could survive. When Princess Amelia arrived with her entourage, she studied the problem with fresh eyes. Her experience with overcoming physical obstacles had taught her to think creatively about seemingly impossible situations. What if we don't move the rocks? She suggested during a meeting with the engineers. What if we go around them or under them instead? The engineers initially dismissed her idea, but the princess insisted on personally examining every inch of the blocked area. Using her wheelchair, she was able to get close to the rock slide and notice something the standing engineers had missed. There was a narrow gap between two massive boulders, too small for horses or carts, but potentially large enough for people to pass through single file. Moreover, the gap appeared to connect to a series of natural cave passages that might provide an alternative route. Working with local miners who knew the mountain's underground structure, Princess Amelia developed a plan that seemed impossible to everyone except her. They would create a human chain through the cave system, passing supplies and helping people evacuate through the underground route. The plan required careful coordination and was dangerous, but it was their only option. Princess Amelia insisted on being part of the rescue effort herself, even though many people protested that it was too risky for the royal heir. The underground rescue operation began at dawn, with Princess Amelia positioned at the critical junction point inside the cave system where multiple passages converged. Despite the protests of her guards and advisors, she had insisted on taking the most challenging position because her small size and mobility in tight spaces made her uniquely qualified for the task. Using a specially designed rope and pulley system, the rescue team created a supply line through the winding cave passages. Princess Amelia coordinated the entire operation from her position, directing the flow of food, medical supplies, and people through the underground network with remarkable efficiency. The villagers, initially skeptical about being rescued by a young princess in a wheelchair, quickly became amazed by her competence and bravery. She worked tirelessly for 18 hours straight, only stopping for brief water breaks. Her voice echoed through the caves as she called out directions, encouragement, and updates on their progress. "Mrs. Bergstrom is coming through with her baby," she would announce. "Have the medical team ready at exit point 3. Or, the next supply pack contains medicine for the elderly. Make sure Dr. Lindquist gets it immediately." By the third day, they had successfully evacuated all the villagers who wanted to leave and had established a reliable supply line for those who chose to stay and rebuild. The operation saved dozens of lives and proved that seemingly impossible problems could be solved with creative thinking and determination. When news of the princess's successful rescue mission reached the capital, it sparked celebrations throughout the kingdom. More importantly, it established Princess Amelia's reputation as a leader who could handle real crises, not just ceremonial duties. King Edmund and Queen Isabella traveled to the mountain village to see what their daughter had accomplished. They found her dirty, tired, but absolutely radiant with pride in what the team had achieved. The villagers treated her like a hero, and several families asked if they could name their newborn children after her. "This is who you were always meant to be," King Edmund told his daughter as they prepared to return to the capital. "Your accident didn't change your destiny, it revealed it." The months that followed became known as the golden period of Princess Amelia's youth. She continued to travel throughout the kingdom, solving problems that had stumped local authorities for years. Her unique perspective as someone who had overcome significant challenges gave her insights that others missed. She established the kingdom's first academy for inclusive innovation, where inventors, craftsmen, and people with disabilities worked together to create solutions that helped everyone. The academy's first major success was a new type of water well that could be operated by people regardless of their physical strength or mobility. Princess Amelia also began working on what would become her greatest achievement, the Universal Charter of Valdoria. This document established the legal principle that all citizens, regardless of their abilities or circumstances, had equal rights to education, employment, and participation in society. It was revolutionary for its time and would later be copied by kingdoms throughout the world. Her relationship with Maria Santos evolved into a deep friendship and professional partnership. Together, they traveled to other kingdoms, sharing Valdoria's inclusive innovations and learning about different approaches to supporting people with disabilities. These diplomatic missions also served to establish Princess Amelia as a respected international figure. On the first anniversary of her accident, Princess Amelia organized a special celebration that had never been seen before. Instead of a traditional royal ceremony, she hosted the kingdom's first festival of different abilities. People from throughout the land gathered to share their talents, regardless of their physical or mental challenges. There were exhibitions of art created by people who painted with their feet or mouths, music performed by blind musicians who had developed extraordinary hearing, and athletic competitions adapted for people with various disabilities. The festival celebrated human potential in all its forms. Standing once again on the reinforced balcony where her life had changed so dramatically, Princess Amelia addressed the crowd below. This time, however, the gathering included people using wheelchairs, walking with crutches, and communicating in sign language. The kingdom had truly become inclusive. "1 year ago, I fell from this balcony," she began, her voice now carrying the confidence of someone who had proven herself through action. "I thought that fall would end my dreams of serving you as your future queen. Instead, it taught me what real service means." She paused, looking out at the diverse crowd that represented the new Valdoria she had helped create. "I learned that we are all stronger when we include everyone. I learned that different abilities bring different solutions. And I learned that the greatest leaders are those who understand struggle because they have faced it themselves." The crowd's response was enthusiastic, but also deeply respectful. These weren't just subjects cheering their princess. They were citizens celebrating a leader who had earned their trust and admiration through her actions. Today, I want to announce that when I become queen, Valdoria will be the first kingdom in the world to guarantee equal opportunities for all people, regardless of their abilities. We will be known not for conquering other lands, but for conquering the barriers that prevent our own people from reaching their full potential. As she finished speaking, something magical happened. The orphan children who had witnessed her original fall came forward carrying a special gift they had made. It was a banner depicting Princess Amelia in her wheelchair, but instead of looking sad or limited, she appeared powerful and determined. Around her were images of all the people she had helped. Villagers saved from the mountain crisis, children attending new inclusive schools, and inventors creating solutions for challenges. Above the images were embroidered words that captured what Princess Amelia had become. She fell down, then lifted us all up. That evening, as the festival continued in the courtyard below, Princess Amelia sat quietly in her chambers with her parents. Queen Isabella brushed her daughter's hair, a tradition they had maintained since Amelia was very young. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the balcony hadn't broken? Queen Isabella asked gently. Princess Amelia considered the question seriously. I think I would have been a good princess, she said finally. But I don't think I would have been a great queen. I needed to fall in order to learn how to truly rise. King Edmund nodded thoughtfully. Your accident taught the entire kingdom that our greatest strengths often come from our greatest challenges. You've shown us that falling down isn't the end of the story. It's often the beginning of the most important chapter. As Princess Amelia looked out her window at the celebrating crowds below, she felt a deep sense of purpose and contentment. The frightened 12-year-old who had worried about people's respect had become a confident young leader who had earned something far more valuable: people's genuine love and trust. She had discovered that true strength came not from never falling, but from choosing how to rise after falling. And in rising, she had lifted an entire kingdom with her, creating a legacy that would inspire people for generations to come. The girl who slipped on a palace balcony had become the princess who helped an entire kingdom find its balance.